Thank you very much, and thank you, Pierre. That was a really interesting presentation, and I hope that what I'm going to tell you will be a complement to that. Well, what I'm going to be talking about today is genetics and genomics, and I think that it should be at the heart of our celebrations for this 150th anniversary. We should therefore recognize our scientific heroes the same way that we recognize our sport heroes, our artists, and even some of our politicians. That might still happen. So a short lesson in history. And 60 years ago, almost to the day, Watson and Crick found the DNA structure, that coil spiral shape that we each carry in our human cells, and we have a lot of human cells, so that's the start. Now, 10 years ago, in 2003, Clinton was saying right on the steps of the White House that the full sequencing of the human genome had been achieved. That is a colossal scientific achievement. It cost $3 billion. It took 10 years, and it required the hard work of scientists throughout the world. Today, and we can walk out and go to the Innovation Center at McGill, that is the Center for Innovation of Génome Québec. You can do the same sequencing for $5,000. It'll take you 2 weeks, and the quality will be far superior. So soon we'll be able to do it for $1,000 in 10 years. From 3 billion to 5,000 and soon 1,000. It's exactly the same revolution that we had with computers. You remember those huge computers, and now our intelligent cell phones have a greater capacity. And you see the revolution that we had with the numbers 0 and 1, how it changed our life, internet, social networks, and so on. Well, this revolution, the genomics revolution, is not as well known, but it is enormous, and it has an impact on you and will have an impact on your children. Well, this is a field where we have quite a lot of history here in Canada. We've had a lot of excellent scientists, and people talked about diabetes, for example. In 1994 in Vancouver, we have Michael Smith with his Nobel Prize as well for the techniques that we're using today for DNA. And for that acidosis, we have Pierre Latine from Saguenay, who's now working in Toronto. He's the one who discovered that gene. So I'm going to talk to Pierre to find out what impact that had for his family. And there are many heroes, such as the ones I've named. And we talked earlier, and we had a great presentation in Canada as well, from one ocean to the next. But today, in the 20th century, 21st century, we can say that even though we have difficulties, our health system is really the social network, the new rail that actually is bridging the links between us. So this is indeed very Canadian. And this system, which is our health system, which is a free health system, has to be based on our individual DNA systems. You know, we each have a variation in our DNA, of course. We're each different. And therefore, Canada had the courage to invest in the 2000 in this new genomics. In 2000, we created Genome Canada and Genome Quebec, and there were many research centers throughout Canada, and over the last 12 years we've actually invested $2 billion in this research. Quebec put $250 million in this to move it forward. Now, all this so that we can have health solutions. So we have the means to actually have the teams that we need to build the infrastructure to master science. And now, of course, we are doing it with DNA, and I'm going to show you the video of the application of DNA on some of the problems that we have, for example, in the environment, and the control of costs, improving the quality of health, and the interaction between genomics and a healthy lifestyle, the preventive and the predictive. So the science lesson today. What is the difference between genetics and genomics? Well, this is the DNA that we have in each of our cells, and there are 22,000 genes in the human genome. We have to study those 22,000 all at once in genomics, but when we're looking at genetics, we're looking at one gene or another. Of course, the two are very interlinked, so that is the difference, and that's why it's very complicated, because genomics involves looking at the interaction between all 20,000 genes, and we have to study them all together. And that explains why it's so complex and difficult. Now, when it comes to personalized medicine, Pierre talked about that, about how to prevent, how to predict. And of course, the patient is at the center of the system, and his DNA is right at the heart of the system. And if we go to the next slide, when it comes to the environment, the biological, natural solutions that we can find that are going to allow us, for example, to reforest our environment with trees that are going to be adapted to the climatic change that we're going to be going through, or find new biofuels, or to find new tools that will allow us to control and reduce pollution in our lakes and our rivers. So it is very important. Now, let me just move along very quickly. Why is this important? Well, because this is the story of our world, of our human beings and everything around us. In 2017, in 5 years, 4 years, the person who's there could be sick and go to the doctor with her cell phone, her smartphone, and in there she has her full genome sequence. And he's going to check it out and adapt her treatment to her needs. So we'll have an app for that. And that's the kind of world we'll be living in. Perhaps not by 2017, but pretty soon. So Canada has a real history of excellent scientists with great successes that we should celebrate. Like we said earlier, we have also a health system that allows us to adapt that science and implement it and modernize our health systems. And we have dreams of what we can achieve in the future. So we confirmed yesterday, and this has not been published yet, but there is a creativity gene here in Quebec, and it's really a strong gene in Quebec. That hasn't been published yet, but we really need the support of our artistic community to tell our story. You see, we need a show on DNA sequencing, so please help us. Help us to come and tell our story. A story that would actually be spread throughout Canada, if not throughout the world. So, in conclusion, I'd like to show you a small video that gives you examples of practical genomics and how we apply them concretely today. And these are things that we're going to be able to complete by 2017 to deal with very real issues that you will recognize. It's going to take 3-4 minutes. Thank you very much, and have a good video show here. Thank you.
J'aurais des milliers de questions.
I have thousands of questions to ask Mr. LePage. But three things. First of all, you were talking about 3 billion and then 5,000 today and soon 1,000 for the sequencing of the human genome. Are you the solution perhaps to reduce the health costs? Are you going to be the ones? Well, perhaps not the total solution, but certainly one of the elements that will lead to a solution. Because, boy, you're doing well. And maybe we're working with Mr. Lavoie, actually, and we're certainly going to have a team in his challenge. And we think lifestyle is very important and preventive medicine is very important. Yes, we work together well. And you talked about the smartphone for 2017 with our DNA in there. But what happens over the next 50 years? What is the future of genomics and genetics? Well, we gave you some examples here where the application is actually starting in 2017, where we have, therefore, the DNA sequencing that's going to actually change the way we're going to treat certain diseases. More and more, we're going to be applying that in our complex system. We haven't reached diabetes yet because that's very complicated, but maybe soon we'll be able to also manage diabetes better. But let's not forget, and I gave you health examples, but let's not forget agriculture, environment, all life systems where we will be able to have a much more natural management, so a biological one rather than a chemical one. And you talked about the creativity gene here in Quebec. I'm glad you realize that, but we also need an action gene, because we need to do something. Yes. And I'd like to thank the people who actually created this video for us. Thank you very much. Thank you.